Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Turkina, which is probably one of the most common assault mech in the clan lineup nowadays, just because it's been in massive production in a location that is nearby for the longest time. It's quite sufficient as a mech. It's not the best machine out there. It's not the fanciest thing either. But for a lot of pilots, it really dignifies and signifies the Jade Falcon's way of life and way of fighting. It is one of the third generation OmniMech that came out around the clan invasion era, so some people might not be as familiar with it if you've only basically watched battle ROMs and various video game footage. But it's quite a scary machine on its own, and we'll have a few different body kits that you will see through it. It's been going through a few different revisions over the year. Got the more common one here on the left, which is more recent, and then one of the older ones on the right here. So let's get into it. The Turkina is named after a legendary bird. Basically, the Jade Falcon itself, the bird itself, was a genetically engineered super bird that the Star League built for purpose when they landed on the Pentagon worlds during the Exodus. Basically, there was a whole lot of different pests, including flying pests, and they needed a bird that was able to take it out fairly quickly and efficiently. They were not meant to be tamed, and they were not meant to be kept around, but Elizabeth Azen did grab one, a little one from Ute, and rose it as a domestic bird, but basically a hunting bird. You probably would have seen some people hawking maybe in some video. It's not the most popular or the most common thing nowadays, but it still exists in some places. So naming it Turkina, she was with Elizabeth Azen for a good chunk of her life. The bird died of illness. At least that's what the stories say. And Elizabeth Azen went to go a little bit berserk and became the first leader of Clan Jade Falcon. The Turkina comes from that era where Clan Jade Falcon realized that whatever plan that they had for invading the inner sphere, well, might not work as well as they should. A lot of the clans in their Tomon built their new mechs and their OmniMechs in a singular way to fight trials and short-term conflicts, which was actually the complete opposite way of how the inner spheres like to fight their own wars, especially when they were stuck on a planet waiting for either rescue or anybody to come and help them, which was what happened in a lot of locations throughout the invasion corridors. If you're looking for a little bit of how that happened, you can look at one of the recent version of Battle Lightning there, where you can play as part of the invasion force for Clan Smoke Jaguar, and you can see how it went on Edo as an example. One of the first clans to really take action, I would say they were actually the first clan to take action, was Clan Jade Falcon, who looked at what was going on and released a full star of new mechs to be able to take advantage of, what was going on in the inner sphere. You had two light mechs, a medium mech, a heavy mech, and an assault mech, but at first was really that night gear right there. Then you had the Fire Falcon, the Turkina, the Black Lantern, and finally the Cougar. The engineers and the science cast in Clan Jade Falcon decided to make the Turkina a thing that was tough and reliable, and that was also easy to fix when you were in a pinch. Another upgrade that they put in was to make the machine as easy to pilot as possible and as easy to configure as possible. Because fairly quickly, the Jade Falcons realized that even though they had some great warriors and the mighty commanders, a lot of their warriors were quite subpar because of lack of experience, especially experience in fighting people that were not going to play by the rules as much. It might not be the easiest to build or the cheapest mech around, but the Turkina is really built to be used by newbies. Really, it focuses on being a big, scary, jumpy assault mech rather than being a machine with a million different levels of customization like many OmniMechs would be able to give you in that day and age. The first combat deployment of the Turkina was at the Battle of Tukayid, as mighty clan warriors decided to bet their entire future in a single fight. And not the smartest move ever, and anyways, even though people at Comstar try to keep reminding you that it was such a great victory, it ended up being bad for everyone. Jade Falcon were, well, like just about everybody at that battle, not very successful in their whole ordeal, and it was really Aiden Pride which basically saved them from having a complete and total collapse. The new Turkina, Night Gear, Black Lantern, and Fire Falcon, however, performed well enough that their project were not completely scrapped, which is a thing that would have happened with a lot of mechs in that particular fight if they were brand new and people saw that they didn't work out right. The full deployment and full development of all of those machines was delayed, however, by the Battle of Turkina, where people started reviewing like what equipment should we put on these machines to be able to effectively fight the Inner Sphere. That led the Turkina to not be super common during the refusal war against Clan Wolf, but it was already in production and floating around, and you had a few of those that made active presence during that fight. After the refusal, the Turkina really entered full production at Olivetti Weapons on Sudeten, supplementing the production that they were getting from Complex Beta in Clan Space. With the ejection of Clan Jade Falcon during the War of Reaving, well, the Big Bird mech was still being produced locally, giving it pretty much of a huge boost compared to a lot of Assault OmniMechs, which were basically only built in Clan Space and needed their factories and their facilities refit in order to be built anywhere else. Overall, the Turkina is a remarkably simple third-generation OmniMech. It uses a standard chassis and 18 tons of standard plates rather than any advanced material, easily able to provide that anywhere in the Inner Sphere where it was meant to be serving much of its time. You've got 6 tons of jump jet equipment, so you can jump about 90 meters, which is pretty good, and it's hardwired into the machine, which eases maintenance and makes the pilot more comfortable. I'm generally not completely sold on hard-mounted jump jets on a OmniMech, but in this case, it works fairly well. You also have 15 hard-mounted double heat sinks, which is more than what the engine can normally accommodate, but it's good enough for what it's meant to do, and it'll make the pilot once again a lot more comfortable knowing that they've got some heat dissipation. The only really somewhat fancy bit of equipment on there is the 285 JF extra light engine, which allows the Turkina to go to a speed of about 54 kilometers per hour in a straight line, which is quite reasonable for a 95-ton OmniMech or an assault machine in the top end of the spectrum. And it still gives you 42 tons of pod space, which is generally quite enough. And it'll allow you to put the Turkina as a keep it simple, stupid setup. And configurations are generally meant for just about anybody to just sit in and press the buttons in order to make things go. If you want to see something in the family of KISS here, well, the Prime configuration is built around 2 of everything. It is meant to engage at just about every range, so you can protect the pilot and the machine. You've got one arm that packs a pair of ERPPC, while the opposite arm packs a pair of LB5X autocannon. Once again, quite simple. You know that you've got what you've got on your right, you know what you've got on your left. But a lot of the smarter warriors, once they get used to their Turkinas, will move everything to have one ERPPC and one LB5X on each side to just balance things out a little bit better. You also have a pair of 15 rack LRMs on the shoulder, giving you some bombardment capabilities and very decent long-range firing. You get 3 tons of LRM reloads and 2 tons of autocannon reloads, so you should be able to stay in the fight decently long as well. Tango configuration is a modern take on that particular setup, using the same double ERPBC in one arm as its primary weapon. Opposite of this, you get a pair of Protomech AC-8, or light AC-8, depending on how you want to call them, with 2 tons of reload, allowing you to carry all sorts of specialty ammo that would normally be reserved to regular autocannons. Once again, smarter pilots will be able to make the design symmetrical if needed. The shoulders still mount 15 racks of LRM, but this time they are guided by street technology, which does limit a little bit your indirect firing capabilities, but it does improve line-of-sight firing and damage potential. I'm not a fan of Pack 8s. They don't have as good of a range as I would want, but the compensation with getting the Streak LRM is not terrible. It's not the worst Tango configuration out there, let's say. Next up, we're going to talk about probably some of the most dangerous versions of the Turkina, which are the ATM boat Turkina, which are absolute menace. They weren't released at the original time where the Turkina came out, but once they became available, a lot of people started really hating them. Delta configuration is your basic ATM configuration, packing a pair of 12 tube of ATM in each arm. 48 advanced tactical missile launchers is extremely terrifying, and you're going to have 10 tons of reload, so you can just mix and match the type of missiles that you want in those to be able to do the maximum amount of damage. You have a pair of ER medium lasers in the center line, one under the cockpit and one in the center torso, in case you run out of ammo or if the enemy runs out of armor and you're close enough to just get a pot shot in. The society itself was also ingrained in the Jade Falcon culture, and they had their very own Turkina configuration with the Zulu configuration. If you want to dig into who the society is, well, they were some of the weirder and, let's say, meaner people in the clan culture. This Zulu configuration of the Turkina has also 4 ATM-12, but those are the very fancy streak-firing IATMs that the society had access to. They're not really available to anyone else nowadays. You might be able to find someone who's able to replicate the technology, but you have a various group of Clan Watch going around trying to get rid of these society remnants as well. This one is a little bit smarter as well, having a pair of them in the arms and a pair of them in the torso, so it's a little bit more spread out. You have a light tag as well to be able to guide other mechs missiles, so it's can be pretty useful and guide artillery fire every once in a while. And you've got that Nova CEWS, which was another society piece of equipment, which was basically a C3 computer for clan mechs. A very, very horrible machine, and you will have a few people bringing those out in tournaments and things like that on Solaris and other places, or at least copies of those things. And you'll learn quickly to regret fighting them. Down the line, you've got Alpha configuration, which is another stupidly simple setup where you have a medium's mech worth of pod space to put weapons in, and you want to go with something that's going to be devastating but simple. Each arm carries a Gauss rifle with 2 tons of reload, allowing you to snipe at your heart's content and take out just about anything that you want, and to shoulder mount a pair of 20 rack LRMs with 2 tons of ammo each, once again to allow you to just bombard whatever you want. It's basically a case of point, click, and delete target at very long range, and allows you to bring the pilot back to whatever base you have, because, well, it's going to survive because it shouldn't be getting into the thick of it. Bravo configuration was built as a reaction to the Battle of Turkina, where the whole running out of ammo was one of the big issues Clan Jade Falcon ended up having. This one is, again, extremely simple, with a bit of a lopsided arm, with one having a pair of large pulse laser and the other one having a pair of ER large lasers. You're going to be able to outrange most inner sphere machines, and you're going to be able to outdamage them as well. Once things get a little bit closer, you get a pair of ER medium laser and a pair of medium pulse lasers, rounding things out and giving you a little bit more accuracy here with the pulse weapons. To make sure that everybody's is going to hit in that whole slew of laser, you have a targeting computer to give you just that little extra bonus. You have a grand total of 25 double heat sinks on top of all of that in order to keep the design, well, decently warm, because with all those big lasers, it's going to run hot. You might have to manage a little bit what you're firing. Hotel configuration does use ammunition, however, and it's in the same family, though, as a heavy direct fire support platform. It also uses the same kind of targeting computer to give you a little bit more, well, quite a bit more accuracy. Each shoulder mounts an Ultra AC-10 or an AG-20, depending on when you buy the thing and what they decided to put on it, each fed by a pair of ton of ammunition, allowing you to stay in the fight decently long. At closer range, you get a pair of medium pulse laser and a trio of heavy medium lasers, or improved heavy medium lasers, depending on the situation, spread between both arms. You get 20 double heat sinks to keep you decently cool. I mean, if you shoot everything all the time, you're probably going to regret it. But I mean, at some point, you might have no target at close enough range for your heavy medium lasers to shoot at. So the medium pulse and the Ultra 10s might be the only thing you shoot. It's quite a decent setup. I really enjoy it, but it does have some limitations. You do have to be a bit careful with it. Charlie configuration is more meant to be used in close quarters and into city fighting. The main gun is a massive 20 class LBX autocannon with 4 tons of reload, which is quite a bit, and it'll allow you to reduce things to scrap extremely quickly, especially since it's backed by a pair of large pulse lasers on the opposite arm. The left torso has a pair of medium pulse laser for closer range engagement, and you can get rid of infantry fairly quickly with a pair of machine guns on the opposite torso. To finish this whole thing off, you've got a Streak 6 tube of SRM to take care of armor and VTOLs. But I mean, why stop there? The legs also fit a set of anti-personnel pod and a flamer to make sure that unarmored infantry is never going to be a threat to your machine. Next up, we've got Echo Configuration, which was built by someone who really hates vehicles. Honestly, I've rarely seen a mech more specialized than this one, as each side torso and the left arm all mount a pair of 6 tube of Streak SRM for a total of 36 tubes of SRMs. That means that any conventional armor, VTOLs, or even other mechs, to be quite honest, will regret getting into your firing range. You don't need that much ammo, because if you don't have a perfect target lock, they're not going to shoot. But even there, it's a little bit thin in terms of ammo, but it doesn't really need to. On the other side, what you also have is a AG-40 with 4 tons of reloads, which is really not a whole lot once you start thinking about it, because AG-40 shells are massive. But basically, if there's a VTOL or an aerospace fighter flying close by, you're going to be able to basically take it down in a single shot. Honestly, this is a dedicated machine. It's meant to do one thing and one thing really well. But honestly, that wasn't enough, which is why the double Echo configuration does exist. Because Streak SRMs take about double the size of a regular SRM, well, someone realized that, you could replace all of those streaks with regular SRM6. You do lose a little bit on range when you look at Clan SRM6 versus Clan Streak SRM6, but we're talking 72 tubes of SRM. You barely have enough heat sinks to be able to fire all of them. You've got barely enough ammo to really do anything. But, you know, anything that decides to walk a little bit close to your machine is going to just feel the wrath of 72 tubes of SRM. There's even a completely stupid version of that, which I think is actually the official double Echo, with 24 more tubes of SRM in the arm, replacing the AG-40, with more ammo, a pair of extra heat sinks, and 6 NARC missile beacons in order to make sure that those SRMs, when they destroy whatever they hit. Is it sensible? Absolutely not. Is it crazy? Yes. Will it make people cry? Probably. It'll make a logistics officer just curl up in a ball in a corner thinking of how many SRMs he'll have to buy. The Malthus configuration of the Turkina is all about sniping, but I'm not sure I'm all that in favor of it. Each arm mounts an ER large laser, which is a pretty good weapon, an LB5X, which is an okay weapon, and an LB2X, which is rather lackluster. Each of the autocannon is fed by a ton of ammo, so you at least are going to be able to stand the fight a decent amount of time and be able to mount both clusters and standard rounds. In addition, for indirect fire, each side torso mounts a 5 rack of LRM, which is a little bit lackluster once again, but you can use that in order to mount a variety of fun specialty ammo. I've seen some with ultra autocannons replacing the LBX. It'll give you a little bit more firepower, but a little bit less diversity. It's really up to the pilot in the end. X-ray configuration is a bit of an odd one because it uses experimental equipment, at least at the time it originally was released, but it's quite efficient, all things considered. Each arm is equipped with an highly experimental, until fairly recently, Artemis 5 guided 20 rack of LRM with 3 tons of Case 2 protected ammo. That means that it's going to be very accurate for an LRM rack, which is quite efficient. Each side torso backs this up with a trio of medium pulse laser and 2 extra heat sinks, meaning that you are going to be able to fight things in close range fairly well. On top of all of this, you get an ECM in the head, which will let you protect against enemy electronics, especially C3 setups that were quite popular when this thing started walking the battlefield. And of course, as any good modern version of a Clan Jade Falcon mech, this one also features a pair of talons on the legs, because getting kicked by a 95-ton battle mech is pretty darn bad. Getting kicked by one with talons is even worse. Uniform configuration is generally mech for unusual environment. This one can't be used underwater because, well, they have built-in jump jets, so the UMUs wouldn't be able to be set up. So they've decided to make the Turkina a space combat machine. In order to do that, you have 2 tons of armored liquid storage space, so you have enough fuel for said jump jet, and you've got full RGL coverage on the entire body, so you don't have to worry too much about all breaches. For weapons, you have that pair of LRM-15 fed by 2 tons of reload, along with a 9 tube of ATM with 2 tons of reload. So you will have to think of what you want to load, and generally in space, you'll be loading things that shoot a little bit further. For direct fire at close range, well, you fly up to your target and you start shooting with your 10 ER small lasers, which are spread between the arms in a giant disco ball. Once again, you also have talons on this thing, which is pretty useful in space, actually, because you can actually land on a dropship or a jump ship or a warship and just anchor yourself in with the talons so you don't get blown off by anything that could try to blow you off. The Turkina is remarkably simple and efficient, which makes it a better mech than many of them out there. While some of the base configuration are sometimes a little bit silly, the ATM boats mainly, and sometimes they need a little bit of tweaking, like the Prime and the Tango, where you want to, make the guns match on each side, one ERPPC and one autocannon. There's very few of them that are actually problem child that I would just say, probably don't want to mess with that particular configuration. New pilots will easily start understanding how their different weapons work and see how effective they really are, and they're going to gain the necessary experience that they'll need in order to pilot fancier things in the future if the Turkina needs to go to another new pilot. It's also a machine that is mass-produced at the moment, so it's one that you might actually be able to get through various means, especially if you're friends with Clan Jade Falcon. There's quite a few different Turkinas floating around that various people have built and rebuilt and stolen. But, it is a thing that you would be able to get, unlike, let's say, a Warhawk. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.